Hey, let's bring in a member of the House Homeland Security and Veterans Affairs Committees, Congressman Max Rose of New York. He's a veteran of the war in Afghanistan and recipient of the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. Hey, Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. Greatly appreciate it. What are your thoughts on development? Doing good. What are your thoughts on the developments overnight?
Look, I commend the president for taking a step back. What we need right now is clearly a policy of courageous restraint, one that is layered with strategy and defined objectives. What we do not need right now, I cannot emphasize this enough, is yet another John Bolton war. I was in Afghanistan just 6 years ago. I've got friends that deployed 4, 5, 6 times in never-ending wars. We certainly do not need another one in the Middle East right now. Like I said, we need clear strategy.
Max, Heidi's with us and has a question for you. Heidi.
Hi, Joe. Yeah, I think this is a good time, actually, Congressman, to pause and talk about what's happened in those 20 years since we went to war in Iraq based on faulty intelligence. These are numbers from Brown University. The U.S. has spent $5.9 trillion in wars in the Middle East. Humans who've died, both U.S. servicemen and women, as well as Iraqis and people throughout the Middle East, about 500,000. And, of course, you have to point out that Iraq and Afghanistan today remain among the deadliest in the world for terrorism. My question for you is, how confident are you, even though you're commending the president for pulling back this time, that with people like Bolton, they're behind him, who advocated for bombing Iran even before he came into the office and who himself has never served, who avoided the draft, how confident are you that next time it won't be a different decision?
Yeah, it's never a good idea to surround yourself with insecure, jingoistic draft dodgers. What I will say, though, is to put things into perspective. Right now, comes this September, we will have people enlisting in the United States military who were not born on 9/11. This is a war that we have got to end, and further beyond that, we have got to repeal and replace the authorization for the use of military force passed in 2001. 80% of Congress has never voted for war, and nonetheless, we're killing people and have killed people in over 20 countries with offensive military actions in the 21st century. Congress has got to reassert its authority to declare war. What we are doing right now, I do not believe is working. It's a waste of blood and treasure. We should be investing that money in our own roads, bridges, education systems. We can have a smart and cost-effective national security policy, and I don't think we've done that in the 21st century.
Gene Robinson has a question. Gene.
Yeah, Congressman, what would be the right policy toward Iran right now? I mean, Iran does provocative things. It creates mischief in the Middle East in a way that runs counter to U.S. interests. What would you recommend?
Right. I think we have to separate this into two separate buckets. We have Iran's nuclear program, and then we have Iran's efforts outside of its own territories using non-state actors. And this has been something that's been happening for 20 years. I deployed with a guy, Sergeant First Class McNall, 5 years before we went to Afghanistan. He was in Iraq, hit an Iranian-made EFP, and is now missing half of his knee. So this is something that is not new. When it comes to its nuclear program, though, we should have one very simple objective, and that is to reinstate or reinstitute a new agreement, a new international agreement, one that has either a dramatically extended sunset clause or no sunset clause at all. 10 years was not enough. I think right now Iran is in a position of weakness and vulnerability, not strength, and it's a prime opportunity for us to re-engage, renegotiate with a strong diplomatic effort. We cannot be isolationists towards Iran as it pertains to what it's doing with non-state actors, but that will be a conflict that I believe we'll engage in for a generation or two.
Jonathan Lemire.
Hey, Congressman, switching gears as the last question, you've been a real proponent to permanently authorize the September 11th Victim Compensation Fund. The nation was captivated in the last week or so when Jon Stewart spoke very passionately about this before Congress. You know, its fate still remains uncertain with the Senate and so on. My question to you is, not just, obviously you want it to be passed, but what role can the president play here? He's a New Yorker. It was his hometown that was hit. He speaks of his own experiences that day. What does he need to do right now?
To think that the president of the United States, who Thank you for reminding us all that he is a New Yorker. He could step out of the Oval Office and solve this in a matter of minutes by urging the Senate to pass this today. Think about the opportunity before us. We have an opportunity to be there for those who were there for us. First responders, cops, firemen. I know so many, and I know you do too, who rushed into harm's way and would do so again, knowing the fact that they would get sick. This is our opportunity to put politics aside, hyper-divisiveness aside, and get something real done for the American people. In the process, we can show them that government can work, politics can work, Washington, D.C. can actually work, and I sincerely hope that this president will rise to the challenge and be a leader.
All right, thank you so much. Congressman Max Rose, as always, we love having you on. And
thank you so much again.
I always want to thank you for your service to this country. We greatly appreciate it. And by the way, that report, that study that Heidi talked about, the Watson Institute Brown University report that shows that the United States has spent almost $6 trillion on war since 9/11, with 500,000 people killed. We're going to put that up on our website. Morning Joe. What's our website? MorningJoe.com? Joe.msnbc.com.
You had a website.
I'm Space Age Whiskey.
You have a website?
I'm a hacker.
You have a website?
I do. I'm like, I'm like.
Do you have an app?
Do I have an app?
An app?
Alex, do we have
Mike
an app?
Francesa?
Do you have a podcast?
Yeah, mozzarella sticks.
Do I have a podcast?
Do you have a podcast? Do you have a podcast?
I've got Coffee Cup. Is that the same thing?
I don't think so.
We do have a podcast. Sign up
You
for
do
that.
have a podcast.
Yes, we have a podcast.
Joe, you have a
I'm being
podcast.
told, yes.
Haven't I heard you making fun of people for having too many podcasts out in the world?
kids really like the podcast.
I think
have a
what
meditation thing?
I do have a meditation thing.
Yeah.
I do have Evening Joe meditation. That's the one thing I have mindfulness. Would you like?
You have a meditation app?
Yeah, I do. So a meditation app.
There's our podcast,
There's
kids.
our podcast, right? But while we keep that up, I'm going to say,
I think
Rob, you ready? Are you ready?
I think we should talk to Congressman Himes
turn it
about
on,
your
here you go.
meditation, about your mindfulness and meditation practice.
I want you to close your eyes and listen to the sounds of a babbling brook. And then it goes on for about 2 hours. It's just one of these sleep mindfulness.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very much into boots.
And we got a newsletter, too.
Look how happy
Oh,
Willie
look
is.
at
Oh, there's a newsletter.
Look how happy Willie is.
Holy.
Willie loves the newsletter.
You know what? Willie has a lot to be happy about.
He's not here.
He's not here. Exactly.
That picture, what is Willie looking at in that picture?
No, he's just
Put that
happy.
picture back up.
Yeah, he's gazing off into the heavens.
Seriously.
LeBron,
Picture he's
LeBron
looking,
James was
he's like, he's looking,
right there. Yeah, exactly.
He's like looking up. It's like he's like stargazing over there. He's like
No, he's
staring
just
off.
happy about the podcast and the newsletter.
soon.
All right, so anyway, here we go. Ready?
Miss Speaker.
Daydream believer.
Exactly. Coming up, hackers break into a Florida city's computer system. This is a crazy story.
Crazy story.
And in an extraordinary vote, the city agrees to pay more than $500,000 to retrieve those records. And that's happening a good bit now, the kids are saying. We're going to talk about how hackers are increasingly targeting governments and businesses ahead on Morning Joe. Boy, I hope they don't do that to my website. It's my life. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.